Did you know that spiritual abuse can actually make you sick? In today's video, I'm going to be discussing some ways in which your health is negatively affected by spiritual abuse. So, if you are a survivor of spiritual abuse or any other type of abuse, you'll notice that you don't feel great a lot of the times. And I'm saying this from the perspective of somebody who is a psychologist. So I'm a licensed psychologist. I'm not a medical doctor, but I do understand how um, abuse, especially abuse that is chronic, can negatively affect your physical health. And I'm also putting a disclaimer out there that I don't want you to think that I'm dismissing any legitimate physical problems you do have. Okay, what I am saying is that when somebody is undergoing abuse and it's systemic and it's chronic, it's going to affect your body in negative ways. One way in particular, which this can happen, is through a constant state of what is known as hypervigilance. It's basically always being on the lookout. And so that can show up in a lot of ways. But one way that it is particularly noticeable is in muscle tension. And so, for individuals who I've worked with who have been through spiritual abuse or other types of abuse, they'll say that they notice that their like neck and their shoulders and their back feel very achy and very tense. And that is a normal response to abuse and I also want to mention too that when I'm talking about this type of abuse, especially spiritual abuse, it doesn't even necessarily have to be chronic or ongoing. Okay. But I want you to imagine being in an environment where you're always on edge. Now, you might think, well, in a spiritually abusive environment, why would I always be on edge, right? Many of the instances that we talk about with spiritual abuse do not involve um, things that you might initially think would put you in a state of hypervigilance. So, for instance, maybe in the spiritually abusive environment you came from, there wasn't a lot of yelling, or you weren't like physically harmed in any way. That doesn't matter if you were in a position where you always had to be on the lookout, that in and of itself is going to put you in the state of hypervigilance. And so spiritually abusive environments tend to be very unpredictable, and that is done deliberately. When people don't know what's coming, then they're going to be easier, to control. And they're also going to be in a state where they are always on the lookout. And also, um, think about some of the things that you experience in your spiritually abusive environment. Whatever they were, I'm very sure that they were to some degree unpredictable, right? Maybe you had a leader who would just show up sometimes in the middle of meetings and like insult or humiliate people, right? Maybe they never raised their voice, but just the fact that you knew this leader could pop into any meeting and humiliate someone is enough to put you on edge, even though you may not have been the person on the receiving end of that. So that's really important. I want you to think about that. These environments are not predictable. You don't know how the leaders are going to respond, and you also don't know how the people that support them are going to respond, right? And so unexpected things can happen, and that can put you on edge. And so think about that tension that you're feeling in your shoulders, in your back, things like that. It's because your body is preparing you for action. Those things in and of itself, when we think about that, we might have periods like that where we might feel tense. Maybe there's something stressful coming up, like at work or at school or something like that. But when this happens in a spiritually abusive environment, that is going to carry on into other areas of your life, especially when that spiritual abuse is ongoing. Another thing you want to remember is that when you are in that ongoing state of hypervigilance, it can wear on your body. Our bodies are not meant to be in a state of like survival 24/7. And so you'll notice that if you are feeling on edge a lot, high stress environments, you're more likely to get sick. And that's just because your immune system wears down over time when that happens. Your cortisol levels are likely going to shoot up and stay elevated. And that can have a negative impact on your immune system. Okay, so think about that state of muscle tension that you're feeling all the time. There are other ways too, though. When people are undergoing spiritual abuse, it can affect their thoughts, right? They're always worried, what's going to happen next? What's this person going to say? The dreaded phone call or text message. I know that many of you who I've talked to or worked with will tell me that, anytime they got an alert on their phone, they were dreading it. And sometimes they would avoid looking at their phone or they would compulsively check it to kind of ward off that shock of getting a text message that was from that spiritually abusive environment. So being in that state of constant worry is not good. What ends up happening is that you're not going to sleep well. And some people have talked about how they would have dreams or nightmares about the spiritually abusive environment or leaders. Other people have talked about how just they had difficulty falling asleep or staying asleep. And when that happens over time, it's not good for our bodies. Some of the best ways that we can fight off infections are through sleep. And so if our body is not getting enough rest, we're not getting especially that restorative sleep that we need, then you're more likely to get sick. Another way that spiritual abuse can make you sick is from being overworked. A lot of these environments will feel entitled to your free labor. So you will be expected to work and work and work. And you already have other things going on. So people have talked about how they just were plain overworked. They had their regular, 9 to 5 job or whatever they were doing, or if they weren't working, they were, taking care of the kids as a homemaker. And then they have all these other obligations to this spiritually abusive environment, and sometimes these times when you are expected to labor for this environment are unexpected. So people are talking about getting texts at odd hours of the night or when they're about to sit down with their family to dinner or go out with friends saying you're needed here ASAP and you're expected to show up. And so that constant overworking is not good for your body. If you're not getting the sleep you need, if you are tense and always worried about, the shoe about to drop and whatnot, that's going to affect your body. And I have another video that you might want to check out that talks more in depth about this. But they're actually, you know what, I'll do another video on this because it's really important. Um, this video will probably cover more of the overt ways that spiritual abuse can affect your body. Okay, so I've talked about not getting enough sleep, working a lot, always being on edge, feeling a lot of tension. Those things can make you sick. They can make you get headaches and things like that. And also, if you are dealing with any other types of illnesses, you can get worse, right? For some people, they might have like a chronic condition and then they get a flare up because of what is going on with the spiritual abuse. So this is really important to take care of. And this is why I always stress being on the defense against spiritual abuse and making sure that if you have survived spiritual abuse, or even if you're in the middle of it, whatever your situation is, do all that you can to make sure that it doesn't get worse and that you can remove yourself from that environment in a safe and practical manner. So I hope this information helps. I will do another part to this video, just to explain sort of more of the more sort of subtle ways in which spiritual abuse can affect your health. But I'd love to hear from you in the comment section about how you felt that spiritual abuse can affect your health, can make you sick, things like that. And how you cope with that. It would be great to hear for all of you to, I guess, just provide a safe community and communicate with each other about the things that you are dealing with and how you're working through them. Okay, so I hope that helps. My website is skillsetcounseling.com. If you'd like to book a consultation with me, you can go there and click on the orange button. All right. Hope you have a wonderful day that is filled with peace. Bye-bye.